hunters, one of the most important things in Moco is to complete the rifts, because they're going to give you a lot of EXP points, and I will show you how you're going to beat all of those first level, and on top of that, how you get them below the 2-minute mark. It's quite simple actually. I have already talked about the Dagger in yesterday's weapon tier list video, because this thing right now is literally busted. I mean, it's probably the best or second best weapon in the game. If you go for crit and heavy single target damage, you can beat out of those bosses quite easily, because I will show you just how to do that. Before that though, a really quick reminder from my side. If you're buying any in-game offers like the skins, for example, or the elite pass, feel free to support your favorite content creator out there with the creator code. If you want to support me, use creator code iTzu. And I will show you the crazy trick. That's right, turn invisible and run through the entire thing. This sounds stupid, and it is, and it's as well kind of boring. But if you want to beat the records and everything, that's kind of what you have to do, because you're passing most of those monsters, which is allowing you to only go for the boss. Super simple, and then just full send. That's right, dodge everything you can, try to juggle the aggro of the boss a little bit, which means if you're kiting back a little bit, if you're kiting close to the boss, you can kind of impact on who he is going to attack, and that's then kind of the important thing. But even if someone dies, that's not the end of the world. Like, there's always going to be someone dying. Maybe the boss is doing a crazy combination, someone cannot react or something. That can always happen. Don't worry, just keep going. I mean, that's pretty much it. The reason why we're using those specific gadgets and passives and everything is it's a nice combination between single target damage, and on top of that, you're having the recovery, which means the vamp stash, the vamp teeth, then as well the vitamin pills, and on top of that, even the bonus healing to make sure that you're staying on top when you're trying to fight and trying to not get burst out. This is really important, because otherwise you might just die too quickly. And you see it right now, right here, just focusing the boss. If someone's dying, no problem. The rest of the crew is going to non-stop attack the boss. And that's kind of how simple this is. And now you might understand why I think the Dagger is a little bit, I don't know, a little bit weird right now, because I think this is not what should be possible. I think over those rift runs, there should be some areas where you can't be invisible, where you can just pass through all of the monsters, because it's working versus pretty much all of those rifts where there is any monsters before the boss. Next one, I will show you now all of those on how to beat them, okay? It's always the Dagger. It's always just passing through all of those different monsters. All you have to do is to find 3 other players, friends, or join a group or something to find other players who are aware of this, because trust me, if one of the players is not having the Dagger, that person's not going to have a great time, because that person has to fight through all of the monsters on their own. It's not fun, trust me. We had that happen by accident because someone did not pay attention. You have to restart right away. You need 4 daggers. This is the important thing. Then the same loadout. The loadout might change a little bit with a couple of the other bosses, but I will show you every single boss and how to beat them if they have the same setup, which means you're not going straight into the boss fight. Instead, you always have this rift, I don't know, like channel where there's monsters before the boss, okay? That's always the important thing. Otherwise, something really nice is always that you can like dodge attacks, turn invisible again, dash towards the boss, for example, and you can use the Dagger itself or as well the gadget to really gap close again quickly to try to optimize your DPS. As well, when it comes down to your like gadgets on when you should activate them to maximize the DPS output, it is typically you're trying to have all of them together, which means the Dagger first, then you're trying to have the attack speed, and then the sticker. This is how you maximize the damage output, which is kind of the most important thing when playing this strategy, because you're trying to burst down the boss as quickly as possible, and this is what the entire thing is all about, right? Another thing, which especially can happen if you do not have everything on a higher level or your entire group, always have a safety player. I assume if you don't have all of this stuff on a higher level, you're going to have, how do we say, you're going to have maybe a rough time to like beat it below 2 minutes. But if that happens, don't worry. You can just have a safety player, which means one player which typically lurks around and is trying to stay invisible for most of the time, because this means you can't lose the raid because someone's always invisible, and it's kind of like keeping you within the raid to make sure that you can keep going and beat the boss eventually. This is going to be the next one. This is one of the spawner where you can as well change some of those gadgets. I will use the same over the entire duration of this video, but some of us were rotating through. So for example, what you can do as well, instead of going for the weapon damage, you can go as well for gadget damage, which means this is then more splash orientated, and this is kind of depending on the boss and if he's spawning any like other troops or other things. For this one, we only went for the boss. We knew that there's totems around, but since this is a speed run, which means it's supposed to be as quick as possible, and the goal is not to complete it, the goal is to complete it as quickly as possible, we only went for the boss. So we did not do this. With the next one, it was a bit different, but as I said, I will show you every single approach versus those different bosses, so you won't have to miss any. And for this one, we really only tried to go for the boss to burst it down because we wanted to get it below 2 minutes. This is where you get the final 10,000 EXP, and obviously it's great to get those. So really trying to maximize the value here. One thing though, which gets annoying, especially on this one, and I don't know why I got targeted, but it is what it is. One thing which is really annoying on this one is slowly there's more and more monsters spawning. And that can be kind of problematic. So you really need to make sure that you're somehow dashing through and getting everything right. But yeah, because sometimes the boss is just getting circled. But somehow we were able to beat it. 1 minute 41 seconds. All with a dagger. Yeah, I mean, people told me the dagger is not that strong. I don't know why you put it S tier in your weapon tier list. Maybe you now understand why I put it into the S tier and why I'm considering putting it even over the bow, that it's even stronger than the bow. Which is, again, like based on the mechanic of like turning invisible and skipping the entire rift, pretty much. But for this one, the ladybug on this is going to spawn a lot of other monsters as well, especially guards. They're going to give you a rough time. This is why you can see already, we're having some players with the ice globe. This is obviously giving you less DPS, but you're able to clear the monsters around the boss. This is another option you can go for. Typically something which is nice to work with are things like the ice globe, or things like the rockets, or things like the multi-taser. All of those things are great options, the multi-zapper. All of those are great options, but you should still have 1 to 2, hopefully like a 2-2 split, of like people doing gadget damage, but as well 2 people who are just having straight up burst damage to get the boss down in time. If you're going for the safer approach, which means if you just want to beat the boss, the safest option you can go for is typically versus all of those bosses just the gadget damage, because what you're doing is you're pretty much throwing your gadgets at the boss, maybe even dashing into the boss with your dagger itself, and then just dashing out right away and trying to turn invisible again to then have your cooldowns recycle. This is kind of what you can go for. What we are doing right here is pretty much we're trying to obviously with really highly leveled loadout, trying to get the most out of the rifts and out of the overall run. And again, 1 minute 42. As well, at this point, I want to give a huge shout out to the persons I'm playing with because I mean, without that, that would be not possible, and they're one of the main reasons as well why I'm still really high on the leaderboard. So yeah, big shout out goes to them, and they're coming up with a lot of this crazy stuff as well. So it's a lot of fun playing that. For now, I just skipped the part where we just ran through all of the monsters, right? Like I think at this point you know how that works. So for this one, this can be a more tricky one. It needs a bit of good RNG for you because those poison pools can be really annoying, and if you're unlucky, the spitter is going to like surround himself with only those poison pools, and which makes it kind of impossible for you to attack it. You kind of have to just go through because one of you is always hopefully going to survive, and just try to get the damage out. That's pretty much how it works. Try to use the vamp teeth to somehow survive through all of that damage, and then you're going to get the record time. For us, I think that was so far our fastest run from all of the different monsters. This is like getting like 130 something, which is kind of absurd versus the higher bosses, right? But let me know what type of guide you would like to see next. Or other rifts from the beginning, or would you like to see hard rifts, hard dojos, or any other guides in the game? I would love to know, and I would love to create more Moco content for you, because the game right now is a lot of fun for me. I'm looking forward to what the future is going to bring for the game. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next Clash video. Until then, see ya, and bye-bye.